You are listening to Life Untamed with your host, Catherine Bleish, brought to you by the Homestead Guru at thehomestead.guru. Life Untamed is produced in partnership with the SNLS Network and funded by listeners like you. For past episodes, visit myuntamed.life and snlsnetwork.com.
Hello friends, hello family. It is Catherine Bleish, your host of Life Untamed. What a pleasure and an honor it is to be sitting down and having a dialogue with you once again. It's been too long. This summer was crazy for me. I went through major transformations. I faced my greatest fears and I overcame them. And I have found a space that I have never existed in my adult life. And it feels really, really good. It feels fantastic, actually. I had to walk through darkness. I had to get quiet. I had to get still. I had to go within. And I had to really assess what matters to me. Thankfully, I'm surrounded by friends and family who are willing to walk through darkness with me, who are willing to hold my hand as I go into the depths, the scary places, and help me navigate my way out. I don't know how I would have done it without them. But I've entered a space of freedom that I've never felt in my entire life. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. You see, I have been an activist my entire life since I was a child. In high school, I was the president of Environmental Club. I started a recycling program at my high school that still exists today. We would do trash pickups on the school campus and on the streets surrounding campus. I was passionate about the environment, which led me to being passionate about anti-war and anti-Bush, and that led me to being passionate about Ron Paul and ending the Federal Reserve banking system and real money. And my activism evolved and changed throughout the years, but I've come to a very raw and real conclusion about that time period of my life. It was one giant projection. You see, I wanted freedom because I was codependent. I wanted peace because I was angry. I wanted love because I was sad and I didn't love myself. So I demanded these things of the world. And I stood on street corners with signs, rallying, went into politicians' offices, demanding. And the truth is, the answer was inside all along. And that's what I want to talk to you all about today. Because political freedom, it's a beautiful thing. But once you accomplish it, there are many other ways that we find ourselves enslaved. It can be to our health. It can be to our finances. It can be to a lifestyle, to relationships. We can find ourselves enslaved in so many ways that are completely non-political. And when we spend all of our time demanding that other people change and engaging in politics at home, outside, wherever, we are, at least in my case, projecting the things that are off and out of balance within ourselves onto the rest of the world. I don't need the rest of the world to find peace if I have it. And in fact, when I have peace, I can show the rest of the world what peace looks like. When I love myself, I don't need love from the rest of the world. And I don't need to demand that they behave in loving ways. In fact, I found that demanding anything from anyone else is not really a very loving thing to do, nor is it peaceful. So these are the conclusions I am coming to, and I am finding a place of liberation that I have never experienced before. All of those years of activism, they were coming from a place of fear. I was afraid of what the politicians were doing to our whole planet through war, through violence, through the prison systems, the war on drugs. I was afraid of how fellow human beings were treating each other. It was fear, 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 fear. Well, this year, I decided I had to tackle these fears head on. I had to deal with the imbalances within myself. And suddenly, I found peace. I found love. And I found freedom. And nobody had to give it to me. I just needed to find it inside.
Come and heal your mind, body, and soul with plant medicines. Catherine uses doTERRA essential oils, harvested in their native regions, loaded with natural terpenes and other healing compounds. These oils create an organic solution to so many of life's challenges. Learn more at myuntamed.life/doTERRA. That's myuntamed.life/DOTERRA.
On this podcast, I really enjoy sharing with you the different tools that I am using to come to new conclusions in my life and to find new ways of being. So, I want to start by sharing with you a process called The Work by Byron Katie. You can find a book that she wrote called Loving What Is for free on YouTube, or you can buy it on Audible. You can buy it on Amazon and read the actual book. I like to listen. I learn through listening. And so my friends Nova and Naja and I listened to this audiobook 2 months ago while driving to a homeschool conference, an unschool conference, a gathering. It's not quite a conference. It's on a 4-H campground, and there's all sorts of activities. I definitely wouldn't call it a conference. It's a gathering. And we drove through the night. This is a long drive from Texas to Alabama. We drove through the night while the kids slept in the car, and we listened to Loving What Is, and we did her Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And this is where I began to realize this problem I have developed with projecting onto other people. Now, each of us in the car, we had ongoing repetitive problems with certain people in our lives. And as we went through and did the work, this is a process of inquiry, where you're asking questions to really deduce if these things that you are accusing other people of are in fact true, and what the truth of the matter is. We each did this Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, which you can find on Byron Katie's website for free. And we did it on the people that we were having trouble with. As we went through the worksheet, she has this process called the turnaround, where you take your judgments of that person. This person is too judgmental. This person is too negative. This person complains too much. And at the end of the process of inquiry, you turn it around and you reflect it back onto you. So in what ways could these things turn around? I am too judgmental. I complain too much. I am too negative. That person does not complain too much. That person is not too negative. Because here's the deal. Sometimes when you're arguing with reality, you want people to be different. But the fact of the matter is, people are exactly where they are for a reason. Because they are the sum total of their life experiences, their perceptions, their understanding, their education, their upbringing, their cultural influences. And that is what they are enacting and embodying at the time being. So maybe they are negative, but does that mean that they're too negative? No, they're perfectly negative as they should be for where they are on their journey and in their growth. And it's none of our business how other people are behaving. This was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, but once I got into the rhythm and I realized, okay, complaining about someone else complaining is really me complaining too much. And being negative about someone being negative is really me being negative. And judging someone for being judgmental is really me being judgmental. So when you do these turnarounds and you start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm projecting onto these people because they're exactly where they need to be. They are perfect as they are. Now, once you realize that you're projecting onto them, you can accept reality as it is and you can make changes in your life. You can decide to empathize with them when they're complaining in this particular example, or you can choose to talk to them less. It's really up to you. But once you let go of the control freak nature of wanting to manage other people's behavior, you then can start to focus on yourself. And what Byron Katie says in this book is, if you are all up in someone else's business, who is minding yours? No one. And your business is your responsibility. So if you are being judgmental, if you are being negative, if you are complaining too much, these are your responsibility. And these are the things that you have the power to influence and control, not what other people are doing. And in fact, sometimes when we stop projecting on other people and we start accepting them as they are, our behavior changes and inspires changes in their behavior, and the entire dynamic in your relationship can begin to change. This book blew my mind wide open and really got me thinking. In what ways am I trying to mind other people's business instead of my own? In what ways am I projecting on other people instead of looking within? In what ways am I being a micromanaging control freak? So 2 months ago, Nova, Naja, and I began doing the work every Wednesday together. And these calls last 6 hours, no exaggeration. And we go through and we do the work on a variety of issues. Sometimes it's on another person, sometimes it's on a situation we're facing, and sometimes it's on ourselves. And through going through this process of inquiry, I have come to realize that I had a massive problem with projection. And I had a massive problem with trying to control other people. Letting go of that has been one of the most liberating things I've ever experienced. And it was all based on fear. It was based on the fear that if I let people be themselves, that it would somehow negatively impact my life. But when I'm so busy trying to influence other people, I'm not impacting my life, and negative things do begin to happen. In fact, I was co-creating exactly what I was afraid of because I spent all my time talking about projecting and trying to control people from doing things that were scary. Wow. Complete liberation from chronic fear. I'm not saying that fear is an unnecessary experience. It's necessary. It's part of our survival mechanism. It's part of our internal guidance system. It's our fight or flight or freeze, which we need, especially when you're driving a car and you're in these physical experiences where your body could be harmed. But I think in our culture that we have been raised to exist in a state of fear, chronically, ongoing, day to day, in and out, fear. Fear of what other people will do to us, fear about the future, fear about where our lives are going, fear about money, fear about time, fear about our relationships, fear. And this results in a need to control. I have been trying to practice surrender for years. But something has shifted within me, and I understand surrender on a cellular level now, in a way that I couldn't comprehend before. And I think part of it is that I was always up in my head about it. And so something Nova and Naja and I do when we're doing the work is we get down into our body. So one of the things that Byron Katie says is, how do you feel when you believe that story? If you're telling the story that so-and-so is too negative, that so-and-so complains too much, that so-and-so isn't positive enough, how do you feel when you believe that story? If you close your eyes and think about a judgment you have of another person, about a story you're telling of another person, and you sink down into your body, how does it feel? You might feel tightness in your chest. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You might feel nauseous. You might feel your adrenaline pumping. Your heart rate might increase. Your shoulders might tense up. You might feel really angry. When you get into your body and you realize how these stories, these judgments are influencing you, you begin to understand that these stories we tell are actually probably negatively impacting our health. and preventing us from living our best lives. And then she asks, who would you be without that story? So if you didn't believe that so-and-so was too negative, that so-and-so complained too much, that so-and-so was just spewing vitriol way too often, if you didn't believe that, if you believed that they were going through a perfect process for themselves, who would you be? Would you be more empathetic? Would you listen? Would you have compassion for them? Would you set better boundaries and say, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed out hearing all of this right now, and I just want to take a break from this conversation? Would you be more honest? Would you be less controlling? Would your relationship maybe be better? I have seen a dynamic in relationships and my family, not with my parents, but other family members, where if someone is sad or angry, this particular person, oh, here we go again, right? Well, what if that person wasn't telling the story that being sad or angry was wrong? And instead they said, wow, what's going on? I see that you're feeling sad right now. Do you want to talk? Maybe their relationship would be more positive. So these stories that we tell, that we believe are true, which aren't actually true oftentimes, they are very frequently, what I'm finding in my life and in my experiences, is that they're damaging my relationships and they're hurting my health. In fact, this summer, I was so stressed out and living in such a state of fear that I gained 25 pounds. I left Mexico in the best shape of my life, and I ended the summer in the worst shape of my adult life. I honestly have never weighed as much as I did, except during pregnancy. And during pregnancy, I was super healthy. I allowed fear to affect me on such a deep level that my hormones got out of balance and my body could not function. A lot of people exist in this state. And this is what happens when you are allowing fear to dictate your decision-making, your thinking, in your day-to-day life. When you're allowing fear to rot like a cancer in your relationships and to influence the path that you take. So I'm doing the work every week, and it is truly one of the most liberating tools I've ever used. Now, I'm not dogmatic about it. I don't think it's the answer for everybody, but it's an answer for people who are open to practicing it and trying it. So will I use the work forever and ever and ever every single week the rest of my life? Probably not. But right now, it's helping me. And it's strengthening my relationship with Nova and Naja. It's allowing me to get to know them on a very deep level. And it's allowing me to be seen and heard on a very deep level. To have friends reflect back to me when they can see where I'm out of balance is one of the most helpful, empowering experiences I've ever been through in my entire life. So this is Loving What Is. It's a book by Byron Katie, doing the work, a process that she really spearheaded and developed. And the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, which you can find on her website. You can do it by yourself, but I highly encourage that you sit down with friends and do it together, because talking these things out and getting the perspective of another person, it allows you to really have an honest look about your judgments and the way you are functioning in the world.
Are you looking for more independent and uncensored content to listen to throughout your day and night? Featuring podcasts, news, films, and more. Check out all of our grassroots productions at snlsnetwork.com.
Another interesting experience that I had this summer was beginning the process of going to therapy. I did go to therapy as a child a couple times, and I'm not sure that I had profound results. But this time, my experience has been completely different. I am showing up ready to change. I don't want to be in a state of unwellness anymore. I don't want to be in a state of fear anymore. And I don't want to continue to reenact old patterns anymore. So I am showing up to therapy ready, willing, and prepared to do whatever it takes to shift the patterning inside of me into a new way of thinking and existing in this world. Now, I was given the diagnosis of CPTSD. This is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and this happens when you go through repeated experiences of trauma and stress. So PTSD can happen when there's a car accident, there's one incident, and you develop this patterning of fear and this stress response. CPTSD happens when you are experiencing traumatic life experiences over and over and over and over and over. Wrongly or rightly, I put myself in a position, especially as an adult, to experience trauma. And in doing so, I wired my brain to experience and respond to trauma. This created a set of behavioral tendencies that are hardwired into my brain and that have been greatly impacting my life and my relationships. So I thought PTSD was the fear reaction, that instantaneous triggered reaction that you think of when a veteran hears an explosion or a firework and they get really scared because it gives them a flashback or makes them, slip back into a scary moment. I had that type of reaction up until last summer, and when that reaction went away, I thought my PTSD was gone. In going through therapy, I discovered that PTSD is actually a much broader spectrum of symptoms than simply having, and I say simply with a grain of salt, I understand completely that this isn't a simple experience when you do have that type of fear trigger. But the spectrum of behavioral instances and experiences that someone with PTSD has is broader than that instantaneous fear-based response. I knew I had PTSD because I had that triggered reaction. I was able to really find healing with that triggered reaction through a co-created relationship with my partner, Paulo. You see, I would get really afraid when people would raise their voices with me because of a repeated exposure to aggressive, angry, hostile, it was emotional violence in my home as an adult. One time, Paolo, he's an Italian, spoke to me in a loud voice and I thought he was mad at me. He wasn't. He was joking, but the loudness of his voice, and you know how Italians can get loud, right? The loudness in his voice sent me instantly into a state of panic and fear. And we went from standing in our hotel suite in Miami together, kind of laughing and talking, to I don't remember how I got from standing right in front of him to my back up against the wall, but it happened very quickly. And he said that the look on my face was just sheer terror. Now, when I used to react that way to the person who expressed so much emotional violence at me, that person would get more angry. They were mad that I was afraid. They were mad that I was scared. They were mad that I was sad. They were mad at me for reacting to their anger. But Paulo's reaction was completely different. He ran toward me and embraced me. And he hugged me and he held me and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? What happened? What's going on? I don't understand." And that right there, that one instance of compassion has put me in a state where when voices are raised at me, I don't snap into that state of fear. So I thought my PTSD was healed. Then I began therapy. And in therapy, I learned that flashbacks are just part of it. PTSD can also look like an inability to concentrate, constant negative thoughts repeating in your head, having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, waking up with bad dreams and nightmares, feelings of guilt and shame, being in a bad mood, feeling on guard all the time, losing interest in things that matter to you, and just simply avoiding the thoughts about the trauma that you experienced. Now, as I've alluded to in my 2 previous podcast episodes, I'm going through a legal experience. And in going through this legal experience, I was forced to, let me rephrase the story I'm telling here. I had the opportunity to go through years of text messages and audio messages, and there were things that I had completely forgotten about, that I talked about in writing and in audio. And this was my mind blocking out really scary things. This was a part of my PTSD. And when I found out that this broad spectrum of symptoms were part of a PTSD diagnosis, I was able to really begin to work on healing myself from what I went through. And I'm in the thick of it right now. I'm going through this process right now. This is not something I would say I'm totally healed from, because I just discovered in the past 2 months that I have CPTSD. My brain has been wired a certain way because of my experiences being in a very, very angry household for so many years. One of the modalities that I was introduced to first by Dr. Buckley, my mentor, my doctor, my healer, he introduced me to EMDR, which is a type of left-right brain balancing that allows you to rewire your brain from trauma. He did some EMDR work with me in February in Acapulco, Mexico, during the Anarchapulco event that I talk so much about. And he told me he thinks I should go see a professional therapist and that EMDR routinely would help me. So when I got back to Texas, it took me a while to actually go find a therapist, but I found one, and she specializes in EMDR, and I have begun going through the process of rewiring my brain. Now, this can be a process where you do tapping. This can be a process where you do rapid eye movement, where you're watching like a finger moving back and forth and you're moving your eye while you're thinking about the traumatic experience. It can also be, in my last session with her, I held these 2 little vibrating nodes in my hand, kind of like a TENS unit. And they go back and forth between the left and the right hand. But the idea is that you're stimulating the left and the right brain. And you go through and remember these traumatic experiences, but you're teaching your brain that it's not happening now, and that you don't have to have these giant adrenaline and cortisol dumps into your system like you do when you're actually experiencing fear in the moment. So I have been going through EMDR therapy, and I think the combination of EMDR and doing the work has accelerated my healing. I feel like I've had several big, spikes in healing over the years. Some of that has involved the use of psychedelics like ayahuasca, like magic mushrooms, DMT. Some of that has involved meditation, yoga, different modalities. And every time I learn a new way of healing, I see a rapid spike in my healing, and then sometimes it will level out, or maybe I'll fall out of my practice. Like I fell out of my yogic practice this summer because I entered a state of fear and I focused solely on legal work, computers, and I just couldn't justify doing yoga or going hiking or going on walks and moving my body like I love to do. And I became vitamin D deficient due to lack of sunshine. And I became anemic and my hair started falling out. My nails started breaking. So in the past 2 months, I have really, really begun to dive deep. And I have found that this 1-2 punch, so to speak, of EMDR and doing the work has really accelerated my healing. I am now able to face some of my triggers head on, eye contact, in the same space, and not enter a state of fight or flight. I can even have that person raise their voice at me, be annoyed with me, behave negatively toward me, and not take it personal. The beautiful thing about doing the work is that you began to realize what is your business and what is other people's business. And when you are letting other people mind their own business, you are letting them own their own behavior. So now, instead of feeling triggered by this individual and blaming myself and having all these negative thoughts about myself, I now realize like, oh man, this person's having an experience. I'm going to let them have it. And I'm going to have my own experience over here. It's my business, how I feel and how I interact with the world. And I don't want to be feeling scared and I don't want to be feeling afraid. And so I'm going to choose to let them own their behavior, and I'm going to choose a different set of behaviors. So EMDR and doing the work has really liberated me in a completely new way. It's been so empowering. And quite frankly, it's fun to do this work. I enjoy talking to my therapist and getting out some of the deeper fears and patternings that exist within me. And I enjoy connecting with my girlfriends in this way and really, really diving deep into what is going on. So I'm hoping that as I enter 2020, I will be experiencing true liberation in a way that I never knew possible before, because I am liberating my mind. I am liberating the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure of my body. I am releasing this cellular trauma that I've been holding and carrying with me, this pain body, that sometimes when we're feeling sad, scared, stressed, we kind of hook onto that and get high on it, right? That adrenaline rush, that cortisol dump. And we get into these cycles and it almost feels good in a way, masochistically. And so I am finding now that my life is incredibly simple and incredibly easy. And when this person who I'm experiencing this legal situation with makes threats that 4 months ago would have had me in tears, terrified, afraid, wanting to make decisions that weren't good for me because I was being told that they were going to use the state to influence my behavior in a certain way, I'm just like, okay. I literally say, I surrender. You do you, because you are going to suffer the karmic consequences of attacking me in that way. And I am going to do me. And if the state agrees with you and makes that decision, that's on them. I know that what I'm doing is right for me, right for my children, and right for the world. So I'm going to do me. And I am not going to allow that type of fear to negatively influence my decision-making moving forward. I am not going to enslave myself to a lifestyle that doesn't feel good for me, because what is good for mom is good for the kids. And if mom is out of balance, then the kids will inevitably be out of balance. There's a trickle down that takes place. And I want to show my children that it's okay to dance to the beat to the rhythm of your own drum, to make your own music, and to live your life as beautifully and artfully as you so choose. And if people want to try to control you, let it be forced upon you. Don't voluntarily submit because you're afraid. And what I have found as I've gone through this legal process is that the more I stand in my true self, the more power I have. Because no one has forced me to change a thing about myself. And I very easily could have voluntarily made the changes that this person is asking of me because of fear. And I have made the choice to stay true to myself. And that is liberation. And it feels so, so good.
Dave on the amazing gathering of great minds. You can save 10% off on tickets to Anarchapulco 2020. Don't wait. Visit myuntamed.life/Anarchapulco. That's myuntamed.life/ANARCHAPULCO. Or click on the link on the homepage. Don't miss out on this great opportunity for great savings for a great event.
So now that I've begun to tackle these deeply ingrained neural pathways in my brain, these fear-based, trauma-based, negative mindset patternings, I'm starting to feel creative again. I'm working on my blog, thehomestead.guru. I am gardening. I'm working on my podcast right now. I'm doing art. I'm drawing. I'm journaling. I'm feeling inspired for the first time in a really, really long time. And that gives me hope. It makes me feel excited. And as I'm entering this state of newfound creativity, I'm finding that financial resources are flowing my way, opportunities are flowing my way, and my life is just overall becoming more joyful and more abundant. Now, on this podcast, I love to talk to you about plant medicines. As you know, I am into natural healing, natural health. I'm into psychedelics and all sorts of natural ways of healing your body. And one of my favorite is through the use of essential oils, especially when it comes to emotions. So there's this really fantastic blend by doTERRA called Elevation. This is their joyful blend. I want to read this to you because I feel like it is the perfect oil for what I am talking about today. It is such a joyful blend. When you open it and just simply breathe it in, I can feel it dancing in my nasal cavity. I know that sounds dramatical, but truly, this is my experience. And this is the way plant essences work, is they interact with your olfactory bulb in your brain and they instantaneously create a change in your neural brain chemistry and in your body biochemistry. Your hormonal state will change. This is why walking through the forest is so beneficial to the human body, because we are breathing in the essence of the plants around us, not to mention the highly oxygenated air. So Joyful Blend, Elevation by doTERRA. Joyful Blend was formulated to overcome feelings of despair and hopelessness. This blend combines powerful mood-stabilizing oils with joy-filled oils that evoke happiness. The warm vibrations of these oils can soothe the heart and balance the emotions. Joyful Blend can assist the individuals in letting go of lower energy vibrations. Negative habits lose their appeal as an individual shifts into higher levels of consciousness. This blend can raise one's energy levels and energetic vibrations into higher states. It can inspire feelings of cheerfulness, brightness, courage, relaxation, humor, playfulness, and fun. It teaches that worry and fear are not productive, but faith, hope, and determination are. These oils redirect the brain pathways to transform despair into happiness, joy, and abundance. Joyful Blend supports individuals in flowing with life while remaining in peace and light. The ingredients for this blend are lavender, sandalwood, tangerine, elmi, melissa, ylang ylang, and a few other oils. It helps with the negative emotions of despair, discouraged, heavy-hearted, and trapped in low energy vibrations. The positive properties are joyful, bright, optimistic, carefree, elevated, cheerful, and abundant. Its suggested uses are to inhale from the bottle, to diffuse or place drops in your hand, rub them together, and inhale. This is an oil that I don't typically put on my skin because it does have citrus oils, and that can give you a sunburn if you are out in the sun. So I have found that using elevation simply as an inhalation has been the best way for me to use it. And it increases my mood immediately, instantaneously. I feel so much better. So the power of plants can really help us to work on rewiring our neural pathways. This is something my therapist uses. At the end of every therapy session, she puts a blend of essential oils in my hands and I rub them together, I breathe them in, and I put them on the back of my neck. And this is teaching my body that when I smell this smell, to remember how good I feel when I walk out of her office. This is a fantastic way to help rewire your brain and to heal from trauma. If you're interested in working with me on a plant medicine journey, I would love to have you join my doTERRA team. You can enroll for wholesale prices or just simply buy them direct from me. If you are interested in supporting the show while benefiting your health and your well-being, you can visit my untamed.life/doTERRA, DOTERRA. Plant medicines have been one of the greatest and most influential modalities in my personal healing, not just emotionally, but physically as well. I really appreciate you all taking the time to walk this walk with me. I want to hear back from you. What are you doing to heal? Have you ever experienced PTSD? Have you ever experienced traumatic experiences? Have you ever experienced PTSD? Have you ever experienced trauma? What have you done to recover from it? What are you doing now? Have you ever utilized EMDR? What about the work with Byron Katie? I want to know what you are utilizing to get through your darkness so that you can come out on the other side. What has worked for you? I'm sharing what's worked for me. I would love to connect on Instagram. My username is rewild.child. It is one of my favorite places to share. I share memes. I share photos. It is an artistic expression for me. Please check out my blog, thehomestead.guru. Join our email list. I send out updates that you cannot find on the website or anywhere else. I talk about my health journey. I talk about my homesteading journey, and I visit all sorts of cool places and eco villages and do video tours, all sorts of fun stuff. And I would love to have you on that journey with me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I feel so blessed to have you as a part of my life, and I hope to see you at Anarchapulco 2020. Check the show notes for a link. I'm this year's co-producer. I'm managing all things health and wellness, the Anarch Awaken stage. There's a practitioner space. There is so much that we are doing to help you liberate your body and your mind so that you can find a path to true freedom. Thank you for tuning in to Life Untamed. This is your host, Catherine Bleish, signing off. Peace, love, anarchy.
You are listening to Life Untamed with your host, Catherine Bleish, brought to you by the Homestead Guru at thehomestead.guru. Life Untamed is produced in partnership with the SNLS Network and funded by listeners like you. For past episodes, visit myuntamed.life and snlsnetwork.com.